Welcome, and this is a review of the safety contract specifically for the test that you must pass at 100% in order to participate in lab. One of the questions will be to sketch the room and include the location of the following safety items. So take a moment and pause the video, see if you can imagine our classroom in your head and if you know where all of these things are. If you don't, make sure next time you come in, you ask me or find them yourself. General rules. Number 5, no eating ever. Generally, if we're not doing lab, I don't mind if you have something to drink, but absolutely no eating. Number 6 talks about using or perform only experiments authorized by the instructor. Never do anything in the laboratory that is not called for in the laboratory procedures or by your instructor. What that means is if you take a look at this pipette down here, this is a fun little gadget to turn into a water gun. And I'm sure that given the opportunity, you would love to do that. However, according to this rule, that is not the intended purpose of that pipette. And using it that way in lab is against the lab safety rules. And I can guarantee this would also fall under goofing around. The reason why we only use the equipment as it's intended to be used is because we don't always know the outcome of our actions. You could squirt your neighbor with some water that's at the next lab area. It may startle them. Maybe the water's cold. It hits them in a sensitive spot. They jump, knock something over. You can't always anticipate how another person will respond to your actions. So it doesn't matter if it's something as simple as a pipette or a ruler. Do not use it in such a way that is not described in the lab. Number 9 talks about keeping your area neat and tidy, and all of your materials, books, purses, backpacks, things like that should be stored in the classroom area. Because our classroom and our lab are the same place, in labs where we're up walking around, you will put your backpacks, purses, and things in the front of the room under the projector screen. That keeps us from tripping on them as we move around the room. Number 11 talks about knowing the location and uses of the safety equipment we have available. Number 18, don't go in the prep room. There is a prep room between my room and Mrs. Corbin's, and unless you have express permission from one of us, there's no reason at all for you to be in there. Number 19 talks about fire drill procedures. Our classroom, it's the same as any other classroom. You'll quietly get up and leave the room and exit the building as quickly as possible. The only added thing that we need to do in the science room is to make sure you press the gas shutoff valve. This gas shutoff valve will turn off the natural gas to all of the science classrooms. And I'd like to make a note, please don't press this at any other time during the school year, because it does turn off all of the gas to all of the science rooms. So if Miss Mullane or Mr. Ludwig is doing a chemistry experiment and the gas isn't working, they then have to walk all of the science rooms to find out whose button is depressed, and it's a waste of time, so please don't press it unless it's a fire drill. Some notes about clothing. You have to wear the goggles. I will not ask you repeatedly to put on your goggles. Failure to keep them over your eyes, not on your forehead, but over your eyes will result in a 0 for the lab. If you wear contacts, please pick up goggles with a sticker on them. This is just a little round colored sticker, and in the event of emergency, it gives me some valuable information. If you should get something in your eye, it's important for myself or the medics or whoever else is in here to know that you wear contacts. Number 25, only closed-toed shoes. This one may not seem as obvious as the goggles one, but I know from first-hand experience, a girl working in a lab next to mine at a high school I worked in, she dropped a glass beaker with chemicals on it, and it shattered right next to her foot, and she happened to have on sandals. Now, they were the nice strappy kind of sandals that don't fall off very easily, and the little bits of glass worked their way between her toes and under her foot, and it was a very not so nice mess. So, Always wear closed-toed shoes. If you happen to forget and you come to class with sandals on, I'll ask you to try and find some closed-toed shoes. Perhaps you're taking PE and you have some tennis shoes in your PE locker. If you can't find any closed-toed shoes, we'll make arrangements for you to make up the lab later. There's no grade penalty to this. It's only an inconvenience for yourself. If there are any accidents or injuries in class, you need to let me know immediately. And we're going to do that by yelling code 1, code 1, if there's something wrong with you or your partner, or you notice, an emergency, a fire, anything. If you get something in your eyes, you need to wash and rinse your eyes for at least 20 minutes. I know that seems like a long time, but your eyes are sensitive organs and you'd like to keep them, so keep that in mind. Handling chemicals. It's very important. If we're in a lab, don't smell it, don't eat it, and don't touch it unless I tell you to. Also, when you're taking chemicals out of a container, please do not, at the end of the lab, put those chemicals back into the container. You can kind of think of it like food at a restaurant. Once they serve you the food, if you don't eat it all, they don't take it back to the kitchen and serve it to someone else. It's the same thing with the chemicals. If you take chemicals to your lab station and you don't use them all, do not take them back to the original container. Number 38 talks about never remove chemicals or other materials from the lab area. Just don't do it. Don't take this stuff home. There's no reason for you to have it. Just don't do it. Handling glassware and equipment. Don't touch broken glass. It's not that I don't think that you're perfectly capable of getting a broom and sweeping up broken glass. There are just too many risks with you getting cut, and chemicals on the glassware or dirt from the floor on the glassware. So please let me do that. If you do break glassware, let me know and I will get it cleaned up. Rule number 44 says when removing electrical plugs from a socket, grasp the plug, not the electrical cord. Hands must be completely dry. Just use common sense. Be careful when handling the equipment. Another thing to be careful of with glassware, it talks about in rule number 45. You need to look for cracks, chips, and dirty glassware. You should never use them if they're cracked. If they're dirty, don't use them. You don't know what's in there, and it may react with something that you are doing in lab. The cracks and chips are important because if you heat that glassware with a crack or a chip, it may shatter. And the best piece of advice, if you don't understand how to use a piece of equipment, ask me. When you're heating substances, number 49 deals with using extreme caution with a gas burner. Your hair needs to be tied back if you have long hair when using gas. Never leave the lit burner unattended. And I will instruct you on the best practices on heating different pieces of glassware should we need to. Another thing to remember is don't point heated test tubes at people. You never know when something's going to pop or spark or fly out. And I know this sounds obvious, but hot glassware looks the same as cool glassware. Don't pick it up. Be careful when you handle glass that you've been heating. All right, there's some questions at the end of the safety contract. Do you wear contact lenses? Again, this is something that is helpful for me in the event of emergency. Are you colorblind? This helps me modify labs if I need to, or place you with other people that can see color changes or things like that. If you have any allergies, please let me know. We sometimes use food, nuts, and we do use latex gloves. So if you have allergies to these, please let me know on the safety contract. Thank you, and good luck on the test.